What happens when I confess, drunk and smiling, that I only chose my husband after his best friend said no, and the next morning he is gone? How can a quiet man answer my public jokes with only steps and paper and win while everyone watches? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Avadni Mia. I am 32 and I run stock and numbers for a busy pharmacy. I like neat lists and bright captions. My husband, Caleb Rios, is 35 and works in transit. He loves quiet, rules, and being early. Our daughter, Mara, is 7 and asks heavy questions with a soft face. I say I will explain later. Last night I drank too much at a rooftop party for a friend. The music was warm and the cameras were kind. I told a circle, smiling, that I married Caleb only after his friend Jonah said no to me years ago. I called it honesty. I called it a joke with truth inside. Someone filmed. Comments started before I reached home. I told myself grown people respect brave wives. This morning the apartment was neat and colder. Caleb's side of the closet looked tidy in a new way. His travel mug sat alone, clean and dry. He did not shout. He did not ask questions. He was simply gone, like a train that leaves on time. I decided he was sulking. I decided I would fix the story at work and make people understand. That is leadership, really. I woke with a dry mouth and a heavy head, the kind that makes thoughts stick. The apartment looked clean in the morning light, too clean. Caleb's side of the closet was tidy in a new way, shirts lined like a little parade that had already marched. His travel mug sat upside down on a dish towel, dry and waiting. I decided he had left early because he hated scenes. I told myself that meant he was sulking, not serious. I moved slow through the kitchen and opened the blinds. I pictured last night as soon as the light hit the counter. A rooftop, warm music, faces close, a circle that wanted a line. I had said, smiling and a little too loud, that I married Caleb only after his friend Jonah said no to me years ago. I had called it honesty. I had called it a joke with truth inside. Someone filmed. People clapped. I laughed and lifted my glass and said adults can handle grown truth. I believed that as long as the song stayed loud. Now the song was gone. 2 mugs sat on opposite counters, like a diagram, one near the kettle and one alone by the sink. I told myself the placement was nothing. I made coffee and held the cup but did not drink. The living room had the faint smell of printer toner, the way the pharmacy office smells late at night when the system runs reports. It made the room feel like a place where numbers matter and jokes do not. I checked the guest room and saw the bed slightly disturbed, pillow not square, blanket turned back. I knew Caleb had slept there before on nights when I talked too much in my sleep. I told myself this was the same thing. He had simply chosen quiet. Quiet was not a plan. Quiet was a mood. My phone was a small sun on the table. Messages sat stacked. Mira, my sister, wrote that my speech was iconic and that brave wives fix weak men. She sent the crown emoji twice. Saskia sent a short clip from the party, the part where I called the confession truth therapy. The angle made me look taller. Hearts fell in a steady line. I watched the number climb and told myself the internet understands intention better than husbands do at dawn. I opened a private thread to Caleb. I wrote that the joke had landed wrong and that people should not learn serious things during music. I said we could laugh later. He responded after a pause that felt like frost. He wrote that Mara's pickup would be on time and that her reading test was tomorrow. He asked me to keep the house calm. The words did not bite. They just sat there like folded towels. I tried to start a new line about us, about the wedding day, about rings and promises. He did not reply. I went to Mara's room to see if she had kicked off her blankets. She was still asleep, breath light, hair on her cheek. On her shelf, a paper crown from some old birthday leaned against a book about trains. It made me think of timing, of schedules. Caleb loves schedules. He says schedules keep people honest. I say they make people dull. We have said both lines so often that they feel like furniture now. Back in the kitchen, I scrolled the clip again. The comments broke into two clean lanes. One lane said truth is power, that I was a leader for saying what many only think. The other lane asked about respect and vows and Mara. I liked the power notes and let the other lane slide past. I decided the loudest idea wins. If the idea is loud enough, it becomes the rule. I tapped Jonah's name and then stopped. Years ago, he had told me no in a careful way that tried to sound kind. I had taken the hit and gone home and then, later, said yes when Caleb asked. I had told myself I picked safety. Then safety began to feel like quiet, and quiet began to feel like lack. Last night, I said that out loud with a smile and called it brave. Today, the smile felt far. I typed to Jonah that the city was small and we should clear old air. I deleted that line. I typed that I hoped he was well. I deleted again. I sent nothing and told myself that restraint is strategy, which made me feel wise. Caleb's laptop sat closed on the dining table. The cord made a neat S. I brushed a finger over the lid as if the machine could feel a touch. I lifted it with 2 fingers, and the screen woke to a calendar in clean grid lines. The red circle around an entry stood out like a berry on snow. Bluefinch Cafe, 8:25 a.m. The time was close to now. I did not remember him ever circling a cafe. I flipped the lid down fast and pretended I had not seen it. I told myself he was meeting a friend. I told myself the friend was a man. I told myself that if it was a woman, that meant nothing, because adults can meet adults. My chest did not believe me. My head told my chest to act like a grown-up. I walked to the balcony door and opened it a little for air. The street below was early and grey. A delivery truck made a slow beep, and a man in a hoodie carried boxes. I made a small plan in my head. Step 1, clean the story at work. Step 2, film a soft clip about humour and love. Step 3, message Caleb in the afternoon with a clearer frame. I did not mean harm. I meant liberation from older myths. I told myself that words can change shape if you push long enough. I am good at pushing. I set my phone on the counter and went to the bathroom to splash my face. When I came back, a missed call sat on the screen with no caller ID. Under it, a brief preview faded from a contact saved with a single emoji. It vanished before I reached it. I tried to call the number back and got nothing. I told myself it was spam. I told myself Caleb would never rename a contact to an emoji unless he wanted me to wonder. The thought stuck. I pushed it away by cleaning the sink around an already clean circle, the way he cleans the counter when he is thinking. I packed Mara's lunch the way he does, small containers for small things. I told myself this showed care no one could argue with. I placed the lunch beside her backpack and wrote a note that said she would do great on the reading test. The note looked like a prop, but props can still help. I placed the note on top so it would be seen. Prop or not, seen is better than unseen. Mira sent a new message that said the clip was picking up and that I should not apologize. She wrote that apologizing only makes the quiet people think they are right. Saskia wrote that she could meet at lunch for a second camera if I wanted to film a follow-up. She attached a list of angles that made faces look honest. I agreed to lunch and said honesty needs lighting. The line made me smile because it sounded like wisdom and theatre at the same time. I pulled my work badge from the dish and clipped it to my bag. I posted a morning caption about how jokes are mirrors and some people hate mirrors. I wrote that we all have first choices and that grown people do not panic about it. I hit post and watched hearts fall like small coins. I told myself I was correct because numbers do not lie. Then I remembered numbers can lie if you want them to, and I worked in a place where numbers sometimes hide on shelves until a person counts. Mara woke and padded into the kitchen, hair wild, eyes soft. She asked if she could wear the purple socks. I said yes, then added that Daddy would pick her up right on time like always. She asked if we were happy. I said we were talking like adults, and that adults use many tones. She nodded the way children nod when the words are long. She ate cereal and asked about the park after school. I said we would see what the day brought. I kept my voice warm because warmth sells any line. When she left with her backpack and a little wave, the apartment felt bigger. I moved back to the dining table and checked the laptop again without opening it. The cord lay in the same neat S. The smell of toner was still there, as if the night had printed something and put it away. I lifted the trash lid and saw nothing but coffee grounds and a paper towel. No secrets in the bin. Secrets never go where you think. I wrote Caleb another message that said the party had a bad angle, that the clip was just a clip, that I wanted to talk when we were both rested. I said we were a team. I said this fight could be a story we tell Mara when she's older about how honesty hurts and then helps. I read the message twice and sent it. It marked as delivered and stayed unread. I told myself the Bluefinch cafe clock must still hold him. I told myself the cafe was loud and he had put his phone away like a hero in a quiet movie. I put on my shoes, lifted my bag, and stood by the balcony to breathe once more before I left. Two small things happened at the same time. The balcony door eased inward, and the latch clicked soft and exact, like a coin dropping into a jar. At that exact moment, my phone lit with a line from a contact saved with just one emoji, a small face, and the preview flashed and vanished. Balcony door latch clicks as an emoji-only text preview appears and deletes. I reached the pharmacy before the doors opened and turned on the lights. The shelves looked calm and full. I liked the order. It made me feel like the room was listening. I placed my badge by the till and took a picture of coffee beside a neat stack of pill bottles. I wrote a caption in my head about brave wives and grown truth. I told myself I would post it after the morning rush. Staff came in with soft voices. Someone asked if the party had been wild. I said it was honest and adult. Tessa from front counter said my video was already moving around. She said people were talking in the staff chat. I smiled and said good ideas travel fast. She looked at me the way a person looks at a label and then at the box. I decided she was jealous. The smell of toner floated from the back office. Reports run at dawn. The sound makes a thin hum. It made me think of home and the way the air smelled this morning. I pushed that away and checked the floor list. I told Tessa to set the promo stand by the window because light sells. She nodded and did it. Giles, my floor lead, passed with a clipboard and asked for a quick word in the small office. His face was kind in the way that means rules. I followed him in. He asked if I had posted the clip where I joked about marrying my second choice. I said it was not a joke. It was truth with style. He said a regular had sent it to customer care and asked if our staff spoke like that while wearing the badge. I said the clip was off the clock and the city needs brave people. He said the store needs calm. He asked me to untag the pharmacy on any caption that stirs drama. I said I would consider tone. He thanked me and said we had a busy day. Back at the counter, my phone buzzed. Mira wrote that the views were jumping and I should stay loud. She said apologizing would make quiet people feel strong. Saskia sent a shortcut from last night where I laughed after the line about Jonah. The angle made my collarbone look clean and sharp. Hearts fell fast. I pinned the clip to the top of my feed and told myself I was using the moment, not being used by it. I checked the home calendar in my mind. I had seen a red circle on the laptop before I left. Depot Records 3:05 p.m. Caleb never circles store names. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself people buy folders at record shops sometimes. The logic was weak. I carried it anyway because weak logic can still be warm. A man at the counter asked about the price of vitamins. I answered with a smile that moved easy, and he left happy. Tessa said I was great with strangers. She said my posts were brave, but maybe heavy for a weekday. I said bravery has no days off. She looked at the clock. I felt older than her and decided that meant I was right. By mid-morning, the store printer in the office started to spit. A single blank page slid into the tray and stopped. Giles laughed and called it ghost paper. The smell of toner rolled out again. I rubbed the back of my neck and looked down at my phone. A customer tagged me in a story from the party. The caption said truth therapy and 3 clapping hands. I reposted it and wrote that adults can handle mirrors. The numbers jumped. Giles messaged me the policy link with a short note that asked me to read the part on public disputes tied to the brand. I typed that transparency helps customers trust us, then erased it and wrote that I was trimming tags. He sent a thumbs up. The thumbs up felt like a lid closing on a jar. I do not like lids. Iris texted and asked if I could keep Mara's afternoon calm because the reading test was the next day. She used language that felt like folded linen. I wrote that I would take care of it. She thanked me with a small heart. I forwarded the message to Mira and said, "In-laws always want to run the day." Mira told me to post something bright and drown worry. I liked the idea. I filmed my hands arranging a neat end cap and wrote that order is love. The clip looked tender and smart at the same time. I felt the old glow return. Theo sent a DM. He wrote that last night's line was bold and asked if I would be at the rooftop again this week. He added that he admired strong people. I read the message 3 times. I wrote that I had a lunch to plan, but my week was wide. I did not send it. I wrote that life was busy. I did not send that either. I sent a smile and said we would see. He replied with a single dot. I decided the dot meant open. Giles passed again in the aisle and asked if we could keep personal talk off the shop floor chatter. He said someone from corporate had screenshotted my caption. I said my warmth brings traffic. He said the brand wants quiet. I said quiet is not the only kind of safety. He did not answer. He asked me to stock the cough drops. His face was calm like a wall. I pushed a cart to the shelf and set the boxes in tidy stacks. The rhythm soothed me the way numbers sometimes do. At lunch, I sat in the break corner and opened a yogurt. Saskia video dialed and asked if we could film a follow-up at noon in the alley by the blue mural. She said the light was honest there. I said honest light would be perfect. She said to plan one line about respect so people could not twist the story. I said I would say I married for the right reasons and learned to honor the first spark as a story, not a sin. The sentence sounded polished in my head. I felt proud of the polish. I checked my DMs again. Jonah had reacted to a tag with a small dot too. The dot looked the same as Theo's dot. I told myself dots mean patience. I also told myself dots mean men want you to do the work. I like to lead, but I do not like to chase. I put the phone down and finished the yogurt. On my way back to the floor, I passed the back office. The door was open a finger's width. A laptop glowed inside with a clean grid. A spreadsheet showed initials and dates in small cells. The window dropped to the taskbar as soon as Giles walked in. He smiled and asked if I needed anything. I said I was checking toner. He said the toner was fine. I went back to the counter and told myself all numbers, everywhere, were now a symbol. I did not want symbols. I wanted something I could hold. A woman I knew from the school pickup line came in for sunscreen and leaned close. She asked if everything was okay at home, since my video was everywhere. I said we were modern and honest, and that Caleb believed in adult conversation. She nodded and chose the small bottle to be polite. When she left, I felt both taller and thinner. It is a strange mix, like standing on a box made of glass. Around 2, the home image of the calendar poked my head again. Depot Records, 3:05 p.m. I pictured Caleb at a small table with a coffee, talking to someone with a folder. I told myself it was a friend. I told myself he was learning a new hobby, like vinyl. I did not believe it. I told myself belief does not matter. Only the next clip matters. The thought steadied me. Saskia arrived at the front doors at 2:30 with her small camera. She said she could film a quick reel by the side alley in 5 minutes flat. I told Tessa I would step out for air. Tessa said Giles wanted me back fast. Outside, the alley smelled like warm trash and paint. The blue mural made a bright wall behind me. Saskia lifted the camera. I said a clean line about brave honesty and respect, and that families grow when truth is allowed to breathe. Saskia said the take was perfect. She posted it and tagged me. The views climbed while I walked back in. Giles stood by the office door with his clipboard. He asked if we could talk after my shift about keeping the brand off my captions for a while. He used the phrase "quick word" again. I said I would listen. He looked relieved, which made me annoyed. Relief from other people often feels like control. At the counter, the team chat pinged. A group from the building had made an invite for a rooftop mixer later in the week. My name was tagged in bold under a line that asked for a toast. Saskia added fire icons. Mira sent me a crown. I told myself the city wanted a line, and I was the person who could give it. The office printer whirred at that moment, louder than before. It pushed out a single blank page and then another. The sound pulled heads toward the open door. The toner smell spread in a thin wave. Giles looked at me and then at the page like he knew the timing meant something. I watched my phone as the rooftop tag stacked fresh comments in fast lines. I lifted the camera for a quick story about courage being a daily practice. My thumb hovered over record. The printer clicked again and the tray jumped. A third blank sheet slid into the stack while the team chat chimed a clear bell, and another tag landed with my name. The office printer spits a blank page, while the staff chat pings a rooftop invite with my tag. The rooftop felt like a small ship above the city. Strings of bulbs hung low and warm. A soft beat ran under every step. I arrived early with Saskia and Mira, because a room is easier to own when you open it. Saskia checked angles and said the light was kind. Mira said the city wanted clarity. I said the city would get courage. I liked how that sounded when I said it with my shoulders back. People came in pairs and lines. Coats slid off. Glasses clinked. Phones went face up on tables like small mirrors waiting for a face to bless them. Saskia asked if I was ready to give the line. I said a toast needs heat. She lifted her camera anyway and let it hang by the strap. I walked to the rail and set my hands there as if the traffic below belonged to me. Caleb arrived with his careful walk. He greeted 2 people at the door and then stood a step apart near the edge. He set his glass down and looked at the skyline instead of me. I told myself he wanted to act above it all, so I would look small. I decided to make the room pick a side. I opened with a soft circle near me. I said, honesty does not break families. Fear does. I said, last night was truth therapy, not cruelty. Heads tilted at therapy. Saskia stepped closer. A woman from marketing asked if Caleb was fine with the line about Jonah. I said my marriage believes in adult air, not cages. The circle liked that. I liked the circle. Mira touched my elbow and told me to raise my glass. I did. I said a strong wife can say the quiet part and still come home stronger. I said we should admit first choices so second choices can feel real. Laughter rose by the rail. A guy from admin tapped his glass to mine. Saskia filmed from a low angle so I looked tall. In the left of the frame, Caleb stood calm and small. I held the pose a second longer for the cut. My phone hummed. Jonah had reacted to a tag with a single dot again. I read the dot as a door. I sent a small heart and slipped the phone into my bag like a spark I would use later. A chant started near the DJ and rolled our way. People wanted the line. Saskia nodded like a conductor. I lifted my glass and spoke about past and future. I said grown people can hear difficult truth and stay. I said fear is old furniture and we are not antique dealers. The crowd clapped. Warm sound pushed at my skin. It felt like sunlight you could drink. Caleb did not step in. He did not frown. He watched the city like a man reading a timetable, the kind that tells you when things really move. His calm scraped my pride more than any shout could. I wanted a sentence I could twist. He would not give me one. I told myself this was control, not care. Saskia sent me a quick cut of my first toast so I could post fast. I pasted a caption about courage and mirrors. Hearts began to fall at once. Mira typed that the crown fit. I believed her because belief is a nice chair to sit in when the room is loud. A member asked if Jonah was the hero or the lesson. I said Jonah was a chapter and I was the author. The line made me feel sharp and safe at once. I walked to Caleb and told him the room understood modern love now. He said the room did not need our home. He kept his voice low. I said home is stronger when it lives in public. He asked if Mara needed that air. I said children learn from courage. He checked the time. For a second, a block glowed on his lock screen, and then dimmed. It read, Meeting, Personal Alder Room, 11:20 a.m. He turned the phone face down when he saw me notice. I asked what Alder Room was. He said it was a place with chairs. His answer closed like a door. Saskia tugged my sleeve and said the smoking patio would give a bolder angle. We crossed to the side. The alley below was a dark ribbon. Jonah had arrived by then. He leaned on the rail the way people do when they own small rooms. He asked if I was okay after the clip storm. I said I was built for weather. Saskia kept the lens low, ready to lift. I set my shoulder so the light traced my jaw. In my head, the frame looked like a poster. Jonah said he wanted no drama. I said, closure can be quiet. He said he believed in adults. I said I did too. He nodded once with a small smile that tasted like old sugar. It melted fast. He stepped back when someone from the bar came out for air. I decided distance was useful on camera. It makes a story look tasteful and true. We returned to the main rail. The crowd had thickened. Phones were up. Faces glowed blue and gold. Mira started a fresh chant for the update. I lifted my glass and said, partners who panic are not partners. I said, panic is disrespect in plain clothes. Cheering ran along the edge of the roof. Saskia filmed my face, then tilted to catch Caleb again. My blaze, his quiet. The cut would say what I wanted without me saying it twice. Helena's name flashed on Caleb's screen while he checked the time. He read, then slid the phone down. If she had asked him to shield Mara, he gave no sign. He stood steady like a bus sign that stays still when the wind pushes. The patience itched under my skin. I told myself patience is a trick used by people who lack charm. The DJ softened the beat and let the talk fill in. A coworker from the pharmacy asked if the second choice line was safe to keep repeating. I said safety is not a goal. Clarity is. Someone else asked if Jonah had responded. I said we had a mature relation to the past. The vague words tasted elegant. Vague can be a crown when you say it smooth. Saskia whispered that the numbers were jumping. She told me to give the family version now so the clip could close on a moral beat. I said, families who love you trust your map. I said children grow when truth can breathe in the room. I said a wife who tells the quiet part out loud is not cruel. She is brave. The words felt large and simple, the kind that stick to walls. Caleb moved his glass an inch and asked if I needed a ride home later. The line sounded like help and like a border at the same time. I said I would ride with the city. He nodded once. He offered the night no more. I hated the nod because it said he would not chase me or fight me. It said he had chosen a road I could not set on fire. Jonah drifted close enough to be seen, but far enough to look innocent. Someone asked in a bright voice if he was the first choice from the story. Eyes turned. I smiled and said, life is made of chapters, and we honor every page. The sentence kept the door open without naming the room. People laughed. Saskia caught the moment, already cutting the subtitle she would add later. Mira messaged the group that the next line should land harder. I typed a draft in my notes. A good wife keeps the room awake so the marriage does not die in its sleep. I read it twice and felt taller. I told myself I was saving us by making the truth a public skill. I told myself I was strong enough to carry both shame and glory as long as the camera stayed kind. A man near the DJ called out that he wanted the exact story again for the newcomers. He said the clip needed a clean loop. I told him stories improve with air. I said I would give the short version for people in the back. I inhaled the warm night and let it fill my chest until I felt wide. For a beat, I looked at Caleb. He stood with one hand on the rail, eyes on the skyline. For a heartbeat, I thought he looked tired. Not angry, not sad. Just tired the way a late train looks when it finally arrives and still has work to do. The picture made a small noise inside my mind that I did not want to hear. I pressed the noise down with a smile. I lifted my glass. Saskia raised her hand toward the DJ to lower the music. Heads turned. Phones rose. The city spread flat and bright beyond the bulbs. I opened my mouth to give the refined line. At that exact moment, 3 things knitted together. Somewhere by the bar, a bright camera flash popped like a tiny storm. From the far end, the elevator doors slid open with a soft metal sigh that traveled along the deck. And from the circle near the DJ, a clean chant for one more story rose and rolled toward me in a single voice until it became many. A chant for one more story swells, while a camera flash pops and the elevator bell dings. The family restaurant used a long table that split everyone into small camps. Balloons knocked the ceiling, and a cake waited on a cart near the kitchen doors. I arrived with Mara and a bright smile that felt like a coat. Caleb walked beside us and handled the booster like muscle memory. I thanked him in a voice that sounded like a hotel check-in. Mira slid in next to me and said the week needed energy. I agreed and said the rooftop had been honest and helpful, and that people should not fear honesty. Bread baskets landed. I began soft. I told the table that last night was truth therapy, not cruelty. I said, couples grow when the quiet part is allowed into the light. I said, admitting first choices makes second choices real. A cousin with a loud laugh asked if that meant Jonah was a guest star in our story. I smiled and said, chapters need names. Helena watched me like a person reading road signs. She asked if I would accept Caleb, saying I had been his second choice. I said I would because I am modern and strong. She asked why I posted before we fixed things at home. I said stories teach people. She said families are not classrooms. I replied that I was modeling courage for Mara. The words sounded clean. I enjoyed the sound. Caleb cut Mara's chicken into neat cubes and kept his eyes on her plate. He thanked the server each time a dish arrived. He told the table our daughter had a reading check tomorrow. I said routines are important, then added that heavy hands hide behind routines. Mira laughed, and a few others copied the laugh. Warmth moved along the table like a small ripple. I called that ripple-proof that my line worked. The cake rolled out. The staff sang. I leaned in for photos and framed Caleb out so Mara's grin filled the shot. Helena watched her granddaughter's hands and the clean cut of frosting. I posted a caption about family strength and brave truth, with soft light over the candles. Heart started to fall fast. The glow loosened my spine. When plates cleared, I tried a second pass. I said repeating the joke in public was not cruelty, it was maintenance. I said everyone carries old sparks. Smart people name them. Helena asked if I understood that a test can feel like a trap when the other person never agreed to take it. I said only fragile people feel trapped by honesty. She said children hear more than adults think. I answered that Mara hears love. The line felt glossy. I polished it with a smile. Mara asked if Jonah was family now because he appeared in my pictures. My hand paused over the water pitcher. I said Jonah was a helper from the past and that helpers make parents calm. Caleb asked the server for the bill and said we had an early morning. He paid for our side, thanked the staff, and stood. I said his silence was punishment. He did not respond. He folded the receipt like a small book and slid it into his wallet. Outside in the parking lot, the air was sharper. Helena asked to walk with me, while Arturo kept Mara busy with a riddle about animals. Helena said, respect is not a game and that public talk bruises private life. I said I was not playing. I was building a brand of honest love. She said brands come and go and that Mara is a person, not a campaign. I said Mara learns from a strong mother. She asked me to consider my words once Mara reads on her own without help. I told her to trust me. She said she trusted children more than adults in storms. She said it without heat, which made it heavier. Back at the apartment, the air held a faint smell of printer toner. The office nook light was on. On the desk, 3 binders sat in a row. Home, auto, bank. A sticky note on the lamp read that I should bring forms. The laptop showed a minimized window and a clean desktop with 2 folders called Archive A and Archive B. As I stepped closer, I heard the faint beep of a recording app and then a small tap that stopped it. Caleb placed 2 mugs on opposite counters, like a diagram, and asked if we could talk after Mara slept. I said routine first was a trap. He said routine first was care. My phone lit with fresh hearts on the cake post. I let the hearts win the moment. The fridge chimed with a reminder, labeled Harbour Annex 1:30 p.m. I asked what it was. Caleb said errands. I said errands was a word people use when they want to hide rules. He said privacy and secrets are not the same. I took a picture of the binders and sent it to Mira with a line about living with a filing cabinet. She replied that paper men fear bright wives and that I should double down at the rooftop sequel. The phrase made me tall again, at least in my head. Mara brushed her teeth and asked if we were happy. I said yes, because adults talk in many tones. Caleb kissed her hair and promised 2 chapters. I watched the door close and told myself his calm was a trick that wins rooms without sound. I told myself noise is honest. Easy thoughts taste sweet. Sweet is easy to swallow. Later, I opened the office door again. A small USB stick was taped under the shelf near a folder labeled taxes, the plastic dated in tiny letters. I did not touch it. In the outbox, an unsealed envelope breathed with the vent's air. The laptop flashed a CloudSync pop-up that said a file uploaded successfully. I called it theater. I told myself props cannot beat a story with a crowd. I turned off the nook light. The hallway felt longer, like someone had stretched it while I was not looking. Morning came pale. Mara asked for the park before school. I agreed because a sunny clip helps any narrative. We walked to the playground where the swings make a metal song. Caleb joined a few minutes later and stood near the fence. Helena appeared on the path with a small bag of bread for the birds. She said she had time and wanted to see Mara fly. She uses a gentle tone when she means business. I started to feel Mara's feet pumping, but Helena asked if we could put phones away for 1 minute so Mara could feel seen with eyes, not screens. I slid the phone into my coat pocket and wrapped my hand around the chain like a stage mark. Helena asked how we planned to keep pickups steady this week. I said modern homes flex. She asked if I knew the difference between flex and fracture. I said old words like fracture belonged to old worlds. Caleb said we would write steps tonight. I said I was not signing anything. He said no one asked for a signature. He said we would handle things calmly. The word calmly rubbed my teeth. Mara slowed her swing and looked between us. She asked who would pick her up today if we both were busy. The question was small and exact. A neighbor with a dog, Dara from our floor, paused at the fence and watched us with a careful face. The dog's tags made a single bright sound. The air felt thin, like paper held to the sun. Mara asks who will pick her up while the neighbor watches and the swing chain creaks in a slow, steady beat. The supermarket was too bright, like the day had been turned up until every edge hurt. I took a basket and chose fruit, skin cream, and a bottle of wine. Caleb took another basket and picked milk, bread, pasta, and small snacks for Mara. We moved through the aisles like people who know a slow dance but keep their hands apart. At checkout, he set his items first and paid with his card. I put the wine and extras after and paid with mine. The line between us looked clean, like a strip of tape on the floor. I told myself he wanted to prove a point. I told myself I would make a louder one later with a tidy clip. The cashier asked about our week. I said work was full and brave. Caleb thanked her and asked for a second bag so the milk would not warm. He said he would go straight home to put it away. I said I had lunch plans. He did not ask who with. The quiet almost felt polite. I decided it was smugness dressed as manners. We unloaded the bags on opposite counters. He stacked Mara's snacks into a clear bin and wrote the date on a tiny label. I uncorked the wine so it could breathe and left it like a flag. He asked if I could send him the part of the receipt that covered Mara's items because he was tracking costs. I said later. He said later was fine. His voice stayed even. Even voices make me feel like I am yelling without sound. He walked to the office nook. The room smelled like printer toner and cool paper, the way night smells when numbers are being fed. On the laptop, a spreadsheet sat open with initials and dates in neat rows. The cells were small as seeds. When I stepped closer, he minimized the window with one tap. He said he was finishing a list and then would cook pasta for Mara. I said he had turned our home into a file room. He said order helps when people are upset. I said I was not upset, only honest. He said he had read my posts. I said posts are performance and do not count. 3 binders sat in a row: home, auto, bank. A thin binder labeled utilities was thicker than it should be, as if it had eaten other papers. On the lamp, a sticky note said, "Bring forms." Under a folder marked taxes, a small USB stick was taped to the wood. Today's date was written on it in tiny letters. The sight made a cold dot behind my ribs. I told myself he was staging fear. I told myself smart men respect bright wives. I told myself stories because stories keep the air warm. The laptop flashed a cloud sync pop-up that said file uploaded successfully. He closed the lid and asked if I needed the desk. I said I was only seeing how bored people make temples to boredom. He did not react. He asked if we could sit tonight and write clear times for pickups and drop-offs. He used soft words like steps and schedule. I said, structure is a cage. He said structure is for Mara. I said passion is for life. He said shouting is not passion. I said I was not shouting. My throat felt hot anyway. The fridge chimed with a reminder. Paper drop, 7:10 p.m. I asked what paper drop was. He said a reminder. I said for what? He said errands. I said errands is a word people use when they want to hide rules. He said privacy and secrets are not the same. I took a photo of the sticky and sent it to Mira. I wrote that I was living with a filing cabinet. She replied that papermen fear bright wives and told me to double down. Saskia sent a real mock-up of my rooftop toast with a gentle filter and text that said, "Brave truth wins." I liked the edit. It made me glow. We ate early. He helped Mara line up her pencils for homework and set them at the angle she likes. I scrolled comments and told myself the right words become the right world if I hold them long enough. After dishes, he asked again if we could sit and list steps. He said we should keep the talk off public feeds. He said we should not move money in strange ways. He said we should lower the volume. I said volume is attention, and attention is survival. He said we would handle this properly. The word properly sounded like a small lid being set on a pot. I opened the office door later while he wiped the counter. The screen glowed. The spreadsheet was minimized. A clean desktop showed 2 folders named Archive A and Archive B. His phone lay beside the keyboard, with a thread open titled Follow-up. The last line was short and formal. My chest tightened even though it said nothing I could twist. He stepped in and asked if I needed the desk. I said I was just looking at how people decorate control. He suggested a quick drive to the parking garage to check the trunk for Mara's field trip list. We went down the stairs without touching. The garage made our footsteps echo like we were more people than we were. He opened the trunk and showed a neat bag with labels. He said the teacher had asked for extra wipes. I said the teacher should email me. He said she had. He took a call in a low voice and stepped 2 paces away. I heard answer, and pause, like a metronome. When he turned, I saw a small new key on his ring, square and bright. I asked if it was new. He said it was for storage. He parked the car facing the street and said it made mornings easier. I said it made leaving easy. He did not answer. On the way up, I told him I would film a gentle clip about humor and respect. He said he hoped I would not mention Mara. I said, children learn from brave mothers. He said, children need steady doors. The words landed like folded towels again. I hated that they did not tear. Back inside, he placed 2 mugs on opposite counters like a map. He asked if we could write the week plan now. He said we would keep pickup steady. He said we would not move funds fast. He said we would not bait each other online. I said he was starving me of air. He said air is fine. Fire is not. I said fire makes life. He said fire burns houses. I walked into the nook and lifted the laptop. The cloud icon pulsed once and then quieted. I noticed the utilities binder was heavier than my laptop. In the outbox tray, an unsealed envelope sat with its flap lifting and falling in the vent's breath. I called it theater in my head and felt strong again for 1 minute. I told myself props cannot beat a real story with a crowd. The group chat on my phone pinged with a rooftop follow-up time. Saskia typed that the city wanted a lesson-learned arc by tomorrow. Mira wrote that I should tease coffee with Jonah for closure. My thumb warmed over the keys. I typed that I could do both. I stared at the words and decided both sounded like power. He stood in the doorway and said we could make this manageable if we kept steps, not scenes. He said dates, not drama. He said Mara first. He said the rest would be handled properly. His voice was even. I wanted to shout so I could point at it. He gave me nothing to use. The nothing felt heavy. I said properly sounded like a threat. He said properly was a promise. He said calm would return. I said calm is a muzzle. He said calm is a roof. We stood like 2 bookends with a silent book between us. I could feel the phone in my pocket, bright as a seed I had planted and needed to water. He moved past me to the desk, opened a drawer, placed something inside, and paused with his hand on the key. He repeated that we would handle it properly and that Mara's schedule would be steady. The small key turned. The lock clicked clean, just as my group chat pinged again with a line that read, "Rooftop recap tonight, or coffee with Jonah in the morning." The click and the ping overlapped so perfectly that for a second I felt the house and the feed breathing at the same time. The office tower lobby smelled like stone and coffee. I lifted my phone for a selfie. A woman in a neat jacket asked my name, confirmed it, and handed me an envelope. She said I was being served. The first page said divorce petition. The next pages listed temporary orders, today's custody schedule, financial restraints, possession of items to Caleb, and no attacks. The school app pinged about pickup. Security asked me to step aside. Caleb stood apart, nodded once, and said we would follow the schedule. The elevator bell rang. A phone flashed. The papers fluttered against my wrist.